Selecting the right theme for your CIM assignments is core for your success. Now, the introduction of a theme was in 2019 and then it got established in 2020, which got all our students to think extremely practically, think like CEOs, think like entrepreneurs. Now, every one of you will start by selecting a company and doing research about this company because you will use all of your learning to help improve this company's performance. Now, how to do that, the selection of a company and this two-page company background, that's a separate video you can find on the Daffodil Studio YouTube and other digital platforms. Today's focus is about the theme, which is also a key part in this two-page company background. Before we go to the specifics of the theme, let's take a step back and understand what is the logic of a theme. If you're a CEO of a company, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, you're a marketing manager, your job is to grow your company, grow your sales, grow your profit. I'm sure you'll agree with me. So a theme is linked to the growth of a company. That makes all of the work you do extremely practical and you will quickly relate to the real world moment you are done with your educational background with CIM. So, if you're House of Fashion, if you're Odell, you are struggling with growth right now. These are two Sri Lankan giants in fashion retail. House of Fashion focus on a more middle class and upper market, whereas Odell was predominantly upper end of the market, as well as tourists who came to this country. Both of these companies need to look at new avenues to grow in the next couple of months. So you got to start thinking like you're running companies of this nature. So here's Apple, how Apple's grown over the last 5 years. You're going to see a staggering 274 billion revenue in 2020 in spite of COVID. By the way, the Sri Lankan economy is about 90 billion. So what's more interesting is how they've grown with COVID in 2021. So when you talk about growth, you will get familiar with 4 growth strategies from an author called Igor Ansoff. We call it the Ansoff metrics. So whatever you do in your life, when you want to grow a company, it comes from these 4 strategies. Taking your current product, for example, the iPhone, and getting current customers to keep upgrading and buying more. We call it market penetration. Taking your products and going to new markets, brand new countries, brand new segments. Fourthly, Apple, new product development gives you growth. From iPhone, from iPod to iPhone to iWatch to etc. And diversification is the most riskiest but also bold decisions you'll have to take. Apple's about that, from music to mobile, now looking at even the automobile car business. Is a great way to bring growth, but you've got to do it carefully. So, think growth for the company that you selected. How are they currently growing? How can they grow in the future? What you're going to see now is how this applies to stage 1, 2, and 3. In other words, certificate, diploma, and postgraduate. So, the 4 themes for certificate are always linked to growth. So, you can either grow by acquiring new customers or retaining. Typical spa supermarkets versus Cargill's example. If you're already a market leader, you've got a large market share, if others are going and trying to take it away from you, you have to build loyalty. Whereas if you're a new player, generally we look to acquire new business. Same way, a theme could be building brand reputation. If you're an unknown brand, you've got to build brand. Or if you're a bit of a brand that struggles for reputation issues, maybe a Kapruka, you got to rebuild your brand. Fourth is an interesting one, driving growth to changing user behavior. How people eat, how people work out, how people cut their hair during pandemic, how people study. All these are opportunities to change consumer behavior or benefit from changing consumer behavior. So, select one of these themes and justify it for your assignment. Stage 2 is pretty straightforward, directly linked to Ansoff metrics, penetration, market development, product development, and diversification. So final stage, which is your advanced level, which is called the post-grad. We call it the rocket level. As you could see, the symbols, there are 5 themes in the picture relevant to both your CDC and CEC assignments. So once again, pretty similar to stage 1. But of course, you will attack them, address them at a strategic level. Once again, customer acquisition, loyalty, new product, new markets, and consumer behavior. So now it's about taking a decision based on the level you are in, what will be your theme. Either which way, these themes will have to drive growth. Now, at a stage 1 level, most of you will figure out growth, product sales. Here's an example of iPhone, iPad, etc. growth for Apple. So you got to think from how far are your products growing? Where is the growth? You could think from markets, which segments, which geographies the growth is coming from. If you're doing for a local company, it could be what customer segments the growth is coming from. But nothing stops you, even when you're stage 1 or 2, to understand profit, the financials. This is a must in stage 2 and 3 to understand revenue growth, expenses, as well as finally a net income, net profit type of growth. So be familiar with how your company is operating. You might not be able to find this information overnight, but if you work hard enough, if you do some calculations by yourself, Daffodil, your tutors, your office will help you. You will be able to get to this type of information. So here's what an assignment looks like. And in that assignment, it will tell you how to come up with your company background and the need for a team, generally at the end of task 1A. Choosing your company, we've given you a good rundown in a video which you should check on YouTube. And in that, again, the theme is addressed, how the company background should be done is also explained in detail. Today, let's focus only on the 5th point about the theme. Any company you select, local, international, no problem. My case, I'm involved in a couple of small businesses, marketing education, Daffodil, sales consultancy and training at Snipex, cycling at Spinner, Ironman is an event. So it can be any company as long as you have access to information and it's an established company. So the theme you select is discussed under 8 areas. So select a theme that suits that company's current context. The example we discussed with Cargill's versus Spa versus Kiel's themes would be very different. You got to be able to access to information, data that supports this. So that's an important point to note. You got to justify this theme. You can't just say, you have to justify. Make a note on that. So a few more points that you should take note of. It has to apply to all the tasks that are being required for you to look at. And this theme will be across the assignment. Of course, the same theme might apply for all assignments that you do and nothing wrong with that. So there will be help to improve your personal skills. We will help you. And finally, you have to ensure the theme is clearly mentioned where you are establishing the theme as well as in your cover page. So these are your 8 points to ensure you take the right decision and you use that to do a great theme. Now let's get practical. You got to plan your theme before you go and write it down. So at Daffodil, we introduced a 4-pillar theme justification in 2019, which has helped not only students at Daffodil but across all CIM students. It gives you 4 filters to look at. What has been the past theme trend in this company? What is the macro factors impacting the future, micro factors, any internal factors? So when you layer your theme step by step, you will be able to establish a great justification. So what has Kiehl's, which is a supermarket chain, been doing over the last couple of years? Surely the Nexus card and etc. What is a macro factor that is big, like COVID, people's eating style, how people shop, also people's concern about plastics, wastage, right? Micro, what are competitors doing? As well as internally, today Kiehl's is very important for Kiehl's supermarkets are important for the Kiehl's group because cinnamon, etc. at the moment are absolutely struggling. So internal focus might be more on the supermarket business. So when you bring this together, you can build a beautiful theme for your assignment. So here's one more example on Nike. Great company, innovator, So much to learn from them, but they struggle with the segment of women. Not enough women were buying Nike. And one of the themes that were built by us was to focus on penetrating further into the women's segment. So as you could see, while the theme was built through the 4 filters, it's presented in paragraph form, as you can see. The highlighted areas are to show you can't just write, there has to be research and there has to be data points and you have to reference them to make your case. Make your case. So here we've looked at Nike's total market, what's the women contribution, what is the aspiration, and why this is an important theme for them. Looked at macro, looked at what Lululemon type of brands are doing, taking a piece of the women's segment, micro, and finally, you're not going to see the 4 pillars here. You see a beautiful, beautiful piece of justification that can stand the boardroom test. Right. So one company, 2 pages, one team. That's the game plan. So the yellow list, which is famous, which is already in your company background video, highlights how to do the company background, which we will show you practically in a minute. And at the end, it's about the team. So your company backgrounds will look like this. But the architecture of a company background, we want you to look at this and understand. Think like a builder. Don't think like a student or don't think like tutors, because that doesn't really work. You are a builder of brand, builder of business. Now let's build your company background. So this shows you the approx guidance, where will you put your word investment. In other words, how will you use space. And what you see in the black box at the right hand corner is the amount of space we recommend you would you will involve for your team. So this student, good job, stage 1, intermediate level, got good results, but underplayed the team. This is not enough. So not a good example. And you have not justified this enough. So weak 1. Here's a case, a student was out of box, came up with some interesting points, but overdid it, double the space. So which means some of the other information is getting a lesser attention. So that was not a smart thing to do. But again, overall, the student scored well. Too much. Needed more credible information sources, but as you can see, the arrow points at one source, which is a good source. This is a source from Sri Lankan business media. More of that could have been done. Now, 5-star examples are students who've been able to really condense their theme within the space limit, but has been extremely sharp. The final one is like the perfect example, which we've dissected so you really understand. So good job, overall amazing company background. As you can see, internal factors about Zara, external customer behavior, external macro factors from COVID has been identified. Wherever theories used, there has been referencing, sources where the data is, information is found, is given. The circles are to show the analytical approach, bringing data and insight. So overall, a great example how to layer by layer justify this theme that's going to be built and used across the rest of your design. So that's the guide for your theme selection. Remember, think like a CEO. Always, we at Daffodil want you to be original. This guide is for you to learn and get a head start, but do your own thing. But principles, you got to be appreciative of. So be analytical, be creative, be original. So information about how this is done and to connect with Daffodil is over here. And see you soon with your CIM work at Daffodil.